Good afternoon. Our government, led by Premier Ford, will always prioritize our public safety, and we will do so proudly, unapologetic, relentless, and with a commitment that can always be relied upon by Ontarians. I'm here today to talk about the next bold step in our government's plan to protect Ontario. Later today in the legislature, I will table our Fall Justice and Public Safety Bill, the Keeping Criminals Behind Bars Act, legislation designed to crack down hard on impaired and dangerous driving, restrict access to bail for violent and repeat offenders, increase supports for public safety personnel, protect animals, and keep our correctional officers safe. This bill represents a promise made and a promise kept to protect Ontario. And I am grateful to be joined by my cabinet colleagues who were instrumental in advancing this important piece of legislation: Minister Sarkaria, Attorney General Downey, Minister Trevor Jones, and the Associate Solicitor General, Minister Hamid. We are a government that will never stop in making sure dangerous criminals are off our streets, arrested, and put back in jail where they belong. And this includes taking a much harder stand on impaired drivers who put people's lives at risk every time they get behind the wheel. The status quo cannot and will not continue because everyone has the same right, an inherent right to feel safe in their own homes and communities. You've already heard from the Premier and myself talking last week on how we're exploring making parts of the Ontario Sex Offender and Traffickers Registry public to better protect the people of this province, especially our young people. You heard yesterday from the Attorney General and the Associate Solicitor General on our plans to strengthen the bail system by introducing measures to require cash deposits to be provided in the full amount ordered by the court. This measure will improve bail compliance and keep dangerous offenders behind bars where they belong. And today I want to talk about some of the other key measures within this bill, about the bold, intentional actions we are taking to protect Ontario and hold offenders accountable for their actions. Our bill includes measures developed after heartfelt reflection on the tragic death of Andrew Cristillo, a young husband, a brother, and a father from Stouffville, who was killed in a car accident this past summer and killed by a dangerous driver. The driver of the other vehicle, who was charged with dangerous driving causing death, was awaiting a court date for previous dangerous driving and stunt driving violations at the time of the accident. This should never have happened. It is a terrible, tragic situation, and my heart goes out to Andrew's family and friends. Deep we know grief is. The grief suffered by the Cristillo family is deeper. And there's no excuse, not ever, for impaired or dangerous driving. Our government will not tolerate it. We will make sure that those who endanger others face real consequences. And that's why we're bringing forward immediate roadside sanctions, including a 90-day license suspension and a 7-day vehicle impoundment when police have reasons to believe someone was driving dangerously. Stronger penalties for commercial drivers who speed or drive while distracted. And let me be clear, it does not matter whether it's alcohol or cannabis or prescription drugs or illicit drugs or just not paying attention. When people recklessly endanger others, they will be held accountable. I'm proud, as everyone knows, to stand every day in support of our correctional officers. The work they do to keep our community safe is immeasurable. They are unsung heroes, and their workplace safety is important to our government. This bill strengthens safety in our correctional institutions by expanding the K-9 detection program to keep dangerous and illegal substances out of the correctional sites and remand centers and jails, and by expanding the use of safety equipment and protocols such as hatch covers and splash guards to keep them safe. Protecting Ontario also means supporting the people who serve on the front lines and the families who stand behind them. And that's why our government has expanded access to the Ontario Immediate Family Wellness Program, giving more families of public safety personnel the mental health supports they need when dealing with trauma, stress, or loss. Expanded and embedded the Constable Joe McDonald Public Safety Officers Survivor Scholarship Fund in statute, ensuring permanent, reliable support for the spouses and children of our fallen public safety officers. These families will always have the full support of our government, of a grateful government, and this legislation delivers that support. We are also determined to keep people safe in all aspects of life, to make sure that our places of worship, cultural centers, and critical infrastructure, our roadways, our transit hubs, are kept clear so that everyone can access without blockage, intimidation, or harassment. Our government will explore all options to ensure law enforcement have the tools they need to protect us and keep our most sacred and public spaces secure, accessible for all, and free from violence. Our bill will also take action to improve animal welfare yet again, because protecting Ontario includes protecting those who cannot protect themselves. And that's why we're proposing to increase penalties for anyone who harms animals that assist peace officers. We will restrict invasive medical research on dogs and cats unless it is for essential purposes, such as veterinary research. These measures reflect our belief that the cruelty towards animals have no place in our province, especially when those animals serve alongside our officers to keep people safe. Tabling the Keeping Criminals Behind Bars Act is yet another example of a commitment by our government, led by Premier Ford, to keep Ontario safe. If passed, it will crack down on dangerous driving, strengthen bail conditions, support our public safety personnel, protect staff in our correctional institutions, improve animal welfare, and keep violent and repeat offenders off our streets and behind bars where they belong. The people of Ontario entrusted our government for a third time with the responsibilities to keep them safe. Their trust reposed in us is a trust which is sacred, a trust we will continue to earn, a trust that we will always respect. We are leaving no stone unturned in our efforts to protect Ontario. And I want to acknowledge the hard work of everyone that keeps us safe every day. We know what they know, that things are only impossible until they're not. Thank you. Merci beaucoup. And miigwech.
We will now take questions from the media. Media can ask their questions by lining up and asking their question through the microphone. The format is one question and one follow-up. Thank you.
Hi, Minister. I'm hoping to direct my first question to Jordan, if you wanted to speak at the press conference today.
Sure.
Yeah. Just hoping to hear some thoughts from you now that you've seen the bill being introduced. Tell us about how you've come to this point and how you and your family are doing.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think going back to Minister Kerzner's point, promises made have been promises kept. Started with a conversation we had with Ford and his team after the death of my brother, where we explained the situation, what happened, shared what we're proposing be changed. Since then, they've been lockstep with us. I get a text message or call from Kerzner once every couple of weeks, checking in how we're doing. So they really stay true to their commitment. You know, at the end of the day, choices need consequences. And what I'm seeing proposed here delivers real consequences. You have people that use our roads like a racetrack, and now they'll be held accountable. And most importantly, families like mine will be protected. And the best way we honor victims is by preventing future victims. So this law delivers that. And I hope no one else has to stand in my shoes. And that's what this is about.
Thank you. My second question is for Minister Sarkaria. Do you see any hypocrisy in, on the one hand, cracking down really strongly on dangerous driving, but on the other hand, disabling speed cameras, a tool used to enforce speeding, which is a dangerous behavior on the roads.
Well, I think our focus on that has been around measures that will actually reduce the speed of an individual when they enter into that zone. I think we've seen countless examples where an individual can rip through a school zone at 100 plus kilometers above the posted speed limit, and they'll get a ticket 3 weeks later. And so through the $210 million fund that we've launched with the municipalities, our intention is to bring in traffic calming measures that will support measures that won't allow individuals in those specific zones to go over in such a high speed, especially in school zones and community zones. And that's what we've been focused on, is proactive versus reactive in that approach.
Hey, my question is for the Solicitor General. Some of the changes you're making to police in terms of roadside suspensions for dangerous driving, it says that police can hand out those suspensions if they believe someone is guilty of dangerous driving. Is there a chance that if people appeal those tickets, more police officers will be tied up in the courts through those fines because they're not being handed out for, say, speeding where you have a radar gun?
I appreciate the question. In the end of the day, we've listened to our stakeholders, and most importantly, we've listened to Ontarians. We have to have communities that are, in the end of the day, safe. And that's why I said in my remarks, we will be bold. We're going to continue on. We are not going to stop. And we will continue to work across ministries to make sure that we have the laws in place and the regulations in place to keep Ontario safe. This is just another example of a commitment of a government that when we say we're going to protect Ontario, we do it.
And on the sex offenders register changes, have you any concerns about potential vigilantism if you start publishing the addresses, for example, of registered sex offenders?
Well, this is something that the Premier and I spoke about. We said that we are going to consult our law enforcement and our policing partners. We're going to examine this. But at the end of the day, we believe that our communities must be safe for everyone. And we have to seriously look at examples. And I know in the U.S. there's jurisdictions where they've released information, and it has helped keep communities safe. So we're going to be doing this. In the end of the day, we believe that we have to do everything possible, leave no stone unturned, and that's what we're going to do.
Hi, Minister. As you mentioned, the driver involved in Mr. Cristillo's incident was waiting for a court date. How does this legislation help fasten court delays that are really plaguing the system right now?
Well, again, I'm going to let the Attorney General speak specifically to the investments that we have made as a government, but I'll tell you this. When people think that they can get away with an act of criminality, we say you can't. There's finally a government somewhere in Canada at a moment in time that said we will be the tough on crime government. We have listened to our stakeholders. We have listened to Ontarians. And we were returned with an unprecedented third majority in February because people understand that protecting Ontario doesn't just mean anything, it means everything. But I'll let the Attorney General speak specifically to the investments that we're making in the court system.
Thank you very much. And I think many of you do know about the tremendous capacity building that we've been doing over the last while. Everything from adding 52 net new judges, 700 full-time staff, renovations of courthouses. We're building capacity for victim services. And this has been ongoing for some period of time while we work with our justice partners, taking down the backlog a piece at a time. So we're heavily invested in this to make space for the future pieces that are very important. And we're taking a can-do attitude instead of a can't-do attitude.
I was going to add just a quick clarification on that, Tina. So that was originally the issue and what Jordan and his family brought forward to us, right? So this new legislation will then suspend the driver as they go through the court system for 90 days. So it takes off that driver, it takes the driver off the road. And this was the gap in the system that was then identified in what Minister Kerzner has tabled today. So it truly takes into consideration what before the challenges of that situation and the unfortunate incident that happened, and then this piece of legislation is to fix that.
Just my follow-up is for Jordan, if you're comfortable, just talking about the impacts that this incident has had on your family and Your message to the public, anybody thinking about driving dangerously, stunt driving, distracted driving, what would your message be to drivers out there?
Yeah, like every day is a nightmare. When you make these choices, the result of that could be an empty chair at a dining table for life. And one choice or lapse of judgment is a life sentence for a family. So keep in mind the impact you have and be responsible. We all have to share the roads and trust others on the road with our lives every day. And if you are not warrant that trust, you shouldn't be behind the wheel. And every time we put a dangerous driver back behind the wheel, we're gambling with people's lives. And I think today we're done gambling and we're going to start seeing some real consequences.
Minister Kerzner, this bill appears to be a pretty sweeping piece of omnibus legislation, and it has a piece in it that alludes to comments the Premier made earlier about banning animal testing. I'm wondering if the government is all concerned that it could ban some very legitimate testing that is done to research cancer, to research other really serious ailments that medical researchers are trying to make progress on.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the question. I'll ask Minister Jones to comment further. Minister.
Thanks for that question. It's a relevant question. That's why this legislation is aimed at invasive procedures. Ontario is the only jurisdiction that has specific legislation dealing with safeguards and protections as it pertains to animals in research settings. So we're going to consult with stakeholders, take our time in consultation, which I believe opens today. We talk to the full range of stakeholders. We protect veterinary sciences. We protect that invasive research that has to be done for both animal and human life-saving research. But we make sure that humane treatment is safeguarded. And this Premier is very clear, and this government is very clear. We will not tolerate inhumane treatment of any animal.
And Minister Kerzner, as a follow for some colleagues who are working on a story about the cash bail announcement yesterday, I'm wondering if you could just speak about the timing. Why now? Why is that being introduced at this point?
Well, thank you, and I'll invite my colleague, the Associate Minister, to comment further. But I'll say this: we have listened to our stakeholders. We have listened to the associations. And most recently, when I was out in Kingston visiting the Kingston Police Service, I realized when I was there that they have numerous people that have to file the court documents within the police service. And this is mirrored in other police services in Ontario. There's an enormous amount of work that goes into continuously filing the paperwork. What we want to do is make sure now that there's consequences of people who feel they can just get out of jail and go about their lives without having any responsibility as well. Minister Hamid?
Thank you. And Minister Kerzner already answered the question. Public safety is the #1 priority and includes public safety, but also restoring the confidence in public safety. And we've all heard stories over and over again of people violating their bail condition and with no consequence at all, and this adds a consequence for the sureties.
Question either for the Solicitor General or perhaps the Attorney General. I've already seen at least one lawyer describe this change to the bail conditions as potentially unconstitutional two ways, both a charter challenge and a potential challenge that this is in fact federal jurisdiction that you're intervening in. Have you analyzed that at all? Do you have any confidence that this will survive a court challenge?
Look, as I mentioned, public safety is a #1 priority, and we will do every single thing in our power to keep public safe and protect Ontario. That's just the way it is, and we're not going to apologize for pushing as hard as we can and doing every single thing we can. If somebody challenges us, we'll go defend ourselves.
And I haven't been able to see the text of the bill. Does any section of the bill invoke the notwithstanding clause?
It's your bill. No, we're going to debate it in the legislature. We're going to make sure that we engage our stakeholders, which is what we always do. And in the end of the day, we're going to protect Ontario. But it goes to the fact that this government, led by Premier Ford, is committed as prioritizing our public safety. And I'll say one thing more. When it came time to advocating for bail reform on the federal level, it was actually Premier Ford that came forward, that cultivated the conversation with his colleagues and his fellow First Ministers to say that the federal government has to step up. They have introduced new legislation that we hope gets passed, because that's a good first step. But at the end of the day, it was at the behest of Premier Ford to have the conversation to move that forward. And this is why we're leading where no other province has done before. We are a tough-on-crime government, and we're never going to apologize for it.
Hi, Minister. Building off John Michael's question, actually, then. So you're not preemptively using the notwithstanding clause. The Premier said he's ready to do that, I think narrowly anyway, on the sex offenders registry. Have you had conversations about applying it more broadly if the courts intervene?
Well, again, we're going to take one step at a time. We're going to introduce it. I'm tabling it in the legislature at around 3:30 today, and then it will go through the legislature, and which is where it goes. And we're going to debate it, and we're going to cultivate the relationships. We're not going to say what will happen if. What we're going to say is we're going to be the government that will come forward. And I'll say something else. When you look at the actions that we have done, and I spoke about some of them yesterday when we were at Toronto Police Headquarters, we said we would put more boots on the ground. That's directly as a result of the government making the investments to make sure that more people came forward. We said we would put over 1,000 new correctional spaces in our capacity in the short term, and I gave detailed examples yesterday about where those spaces are going to be located. So, we're going to take one step at a time. We'll let the democracy of the legislature do its thing, but in the end of the day, people in Ontario who wake up in the morning, who want to live safely, which is their right, have to rely on a government, and that's our government to do that.
And I think this one's for you, too. I'm looking for an explanation about why you're removing the deployment of an anti-riot weapon from something that the SIU would need to investigate. Is it happening too often? What's the reason for that?
So that actually falls under me because I oversee the SIU. 60% of the investigations by the SIU are related to sock guns, and an investigation is triggered automatically the moment that it's used, and yet with a taser it is not. So we're aligning with what the rules are with taser and with the oversight.
Also for you, for the Attorney General, I want to ask about you were musing last week about this Texas law and maybe bringing that to Ontario. What does you're studying it about? Those convicted of vehicular manslaughter having to pay child support. Why didn't you just include that in the bill already?
We'll have the discussion while we're talking about the other pieces. Some will be in legislation right away. You heard Minister Kerzner talk about pieces that we'll be consulting on. This will be part of that package of consultation.
Okay. And another, I guess this is for Minister Jones maybe. This defanging cats thing, is this a big crime problem in Ontario right now? I was kind of surprised to read that in the bill.
Defanging or decline?
Decline, sorry. Defanging is good. Decline, not so good.
Okay, so that's more of an aesthetic thing. I don't think it's a widespread problem.
Okay.
Again, our consultation is going to be steady, deliberate, and it'll take some time to hear from every stakeholder. So there's a full range of things in the animal and pet world, from grooming to nutrition research to life-saving animal and health research. So that full range. The most invasive, again, we're going to be guided by the Premier in this government, who says inhumane treatment is outlawed. It's no longer tolerable, and so we keep these standards high and be the highest in Canada.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
This concludes today's event. Thank you.
One last question. The cornerstone of the law system, the legal system, the justice system is innocent until proven guilty. When you're taking away and you're doing substantial penalties for a person who just gets pulled over for impair or whatever, they only have to turn that once over to get to have a lawsuit in front of them saying, I was found guilty or I was punished and I was actually innocent. So when you have those immediate punitive damages, you're opening yourself up to legal cases that are going to be found
innocent until proven guilty is a cornerstone of our legal system. There is no question about that. But there are certain actions that create irreversible consequences. And our friend is standing here today a result of that. And so the public expects there to be a balance between actions and consequences. And this bill brings a lot of consequences for actions that people choose to make.
but aren't you opening yourself up to a legal mess if you find a person that ultimately will be found innocent and they've had damages or punitive damages?
We'll take it as it goes, but this is a can-do, not a can't-do approach.
The event is now over. Thank you.